Bonjour relatives, Shangwewe Kamigo Queen Indigenous. I'm Jamie Kellicut with HIR Wellness Institute, and we are live with Emotional Sobriety here on this beautiful Friday. I have just started our smudge, so I am going to get us going with that so that we can start our time together in a good way. I have some smudge for you all. And if you have smudge at home, this would be a really great time to go ahead and get your sacred medicines out. Take a moment to just sort of ground yourself. Maybe you have some water or tea. I have my tea here with my quote. I like to have lots of positive things around me. And I am so happy to be here with all of you. We are wrapping up our Friday. We're wrapping up our week. Relatives, if you are just joining us, if this is your first time being with us, welcome. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety Facebook Live with HIR Wellness Institute. This is a time where we get to come together and talk about recovery, talk about healthy coping. Today we're going to talk about depression. We are going to hopefully engage with you, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable with talking with us and asking questions or bringing comments into this space. I am walking in recovery myself. I've been walking the red road for over 6 years now from alcohol, and I am a survivor of sexual assault and domestic violence. And so many of the pains that our community has felt, I have felt them too. And we all are walking with intergenerational trauma and historical trauma. And part of how we heal from that is CAM, Community Activated Medicine. The people are the medicine. That is a term that was coined and developed by our CEO and founder, Leah Denny. CAM, Community Activated Medicine. So every time that we all come together in circle like this, whether we are physically together or not, doesn't matter. We're coming together. We're bringing our energies together. We're bringing our medicines together. So us being here, we're healing one another. I have medicine within me. Xavier has medicine within him. John has medicine within him. And all of you relatives have medicine within you. So thank you, Chimigwech, for joining us today. Even if it's for a little while, we love that you are spending a little part of your day to talk about how do we heal? What's happening with us? How are we feeling? Let's do a check-in. I would love to hear, Xavier, how are you doing? Welcome back to Friday. It was last Friday that we were here. Yep. Here we are again. It's a week later. Yes, how you doing?
Thank you, Jamie. I am doing well. Thank you for your beautiful introduction, as always, bringing us into this space. I am happy it's Friday. It's been long week. So we made it, relatives. Again, for those of you that are new to this space, we welcome you. For those of you that are ride or dies and here, 24/7 following us on Facebook and with us every Friday, welcome back. Again, my name is Xavier. I am a community healer and counselor here at HIR Wellness. So I am everywhere, doing everything, just really being able to hold space for our relatives in a way that is needed, whether that be through community gatherings, teaching, right, and also doing individual therapy as well, and just also being a support to our staff here as well. So I am, as always, just filled with so much joy and gratitude to be here with you all every Friday as we come together and just talk about just the realness of life and things that we all struggle with, right? Part of our roles here is just to kind of normalize the feelings that we feel, and to show you all, hey, it's totally okay to feel how you're feeling, but then to also go one step further and talk about how we can, just bring in and incorporate some strategies just to make life and situations just a little bit more easier to deal with. So, as always, I'm happy to be here and share this space with you all, as well with Jamie and John. So with that, I will pass to John.
Yep. Thank you so much, Xavier and Jamie. Hi, relatives. Again, just like what Xavier said, thank you for always being a part of, emotional sobriety every week and commenting and just sharing your knowledge and your insight with us. I am a social work intern and I help with a large variety of things. Facebook Lives are Thursday, Survivors of Suicide private Zoom group, our Children's Fire Book Club. I also help moderate on Fridays and also do counseling as well. So just a lot of stuff. And I enjoy every moment of it. This week has been very busy for me. And I love ending Friday on emotional sobriety just because for me, it's like my moment to heal. And it's like that a moment for me to just kind of take a step back and breathe and enjoy, and talking about stuff, being vulnerable and sharing things with you and everyone. So that's one reason why we encourage you to feel free to share with us as well, because I know that everyone has something going on, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Feel free to kind of share, all the good things that's been going on this week, or even the bad things. And I am moderating tonight and every Friday, so feel free to kind of comment, and I will kind of let Jamie and us know if there is a comment down below. And I do want to read a comment
Nice. Yay.
From Marissa. Marissa said, "Good evening, relatives."
Oh, bonjour, Marissa. Good evening.
And she said that she's doing well and trying to stay positive. And she was tested so much this week, and she's being very grateful for her small blessings.
Aw, thank you for sharing that with us, Marissa. Miigwech, thank you. We're so glad that you're here with us. Sending you lots of love and lots of virtual hugs.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Miigwech, everyone. Oh, Xavier, John, thank you so much for introducing yourselves, for bringing your energy into this space. This is exactly what CAM is. This is exactly what CAM is. We are coming together. We are bringing our energy. We are bringing our medicine, our voice, and we are sharing with one another, talking with one another, holding space for one another. That's what it's all about. I love it. Love it. Love it. And I would like us, if we could, read a meditation. So every week we always bring in an elder's meditation. So out of this book, and it might be hard to see. Oh, there we go. So I'll try to make it so that you can see it. Meditations with Native American Elders, the 4 Seasons. And this book has been really instrumental for me in my recovery. Many years ago, when I started walking this journey, I came across Sobriety, and I started incorporating some of that into my life and found myself connecting more and more to my culture, finding out who I am as an individual, who my spirit is, just finally finding truth for myself. Truth. And with truth came a lot of healing and a lot of joy and happiness, and sometimes really uncomfortableness, and sometimes a little pain even. And it was okay. I kept walking forward, and I kept finding new ways to bring myself joy and happiness and laughter, even in some of those tough times. So one of them is the meditations with Native American elders. It's really important for us to be able to honor the voices of our elders, to hear what they have to say and reconnect with that. And so I was wondering, I'm hoping, John, are you able to, would you be able to bring your voice into this space and read us what today's meditation is?
I would love to. Thank you, Jamie. And
Thanks.
relatives, I will also share this meditation into the comment section. And then feel free to kind of follow along as I read it. So just give me 1 second to copy and paste that. So for the elders meditation for today, it states, the old people say, learn from your mistakes. So I try to accept everything for what it is and to make the best of each situation, one day at a time. And that's from Dr. A.C. Ross, Lakota. The Creator did not design us to beat ourselves up when we make mistakes. Mistakes are our friends. It is from mistakes that we learn. The more mistakes we learn from, the faster we gain wisdom. The faster we gain wisdom, the more we love. The more we love, the fewer our mistakes. Therefore, mistakes help us learn love. God is love. Mistakes are sacred and help us learn about God's will for ourselves.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you, John, for sharing that. Thank you for reading that for us. Mistakes are sacred. I was writing little notes. Everything's sacred, right? It's like a reminder from our elders to say, you yourself are sacred, and you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And guess what? We're not perfect. So there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be times where we kind of maybe trip a little bit, or we fall, or maybe we fall really hard. And there's going to be times where stuff happens, right? And so even in that, because everything takes balance, can't always be perfect because we're not perfect. So there's going to be some times where there's mistakes. But what do we learn from those mistakes? What are we taking from that? Those are all opportunities. I see them all as opportunities. And they are sacred. It's a part of our story. And each one of us, our story is sacred. Our story is sacred and it matters. So don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. It matters. You matter. Your story matters. So that's what I was kind of thinking about. And I was also thinking about the idea of being gentle with yourself. Even if you have a day, it's okay. We got to be gentle with ourselves. That healing that we're walking, that healing journey we're walking, the healing that we're doing for ourselves and for our communities, there's a lot of grace in that. There's a lot of really being gentle with ourselves, caring for ourselves. What do you think, John? So you read that. What were you thinking when you were reading that?
I love that so much just because I strongly believe in making mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, how can you learn from it? And I think that's so important to understand that, no one's perfect. Sometimes you make the same mistake over and over. And I think that's especially important for people who are, struggling with sobriety or in the process of sobriety, that it's okay. And that, sometimes relapse does happen.
Mm-hmm.
And just staying focused on what you want and your goals. And I think, like what you said earlier, being kind to yourself, especially when you're struggling or feeling very judgmental and hard on yourself. Just be kind to yourself and understand that, sometimes we can make the same mistake over and over, but every mistake is an opportunity to do better. And one of these days, it will click for you, It may not click right away, but it will, because it is an opportunity every time. And just understanding that. Because I think that oftentimes we look at mistake as such a huge negative and as failure, that oftentimes you forget to use it as the opportunity instead.
Yeah.
And instead you put yourself down, or you allow it to take a toll on your body and how you feel, instead of allowing it to be a second chance.
Mm, that's wonderful. And you know what else? John, thank you so much for saying all of that. And thank you for bringing your voice into this. What I was also thinking about with those mistakes, what if we looked at it slightly different? What if we kind of picked it apart a little and said, okay, so let's just say we repeated or supposedly repeated a mistake, right? But if we really looked at it, it might be that I did repeat that, like the behavior maybe, but it was I waited a week before I did that. Where last time it was like one day. It was like one day, let's say I had an angry outburst, and then it took me, I was like 2 days of no angry outbursts, but then I did have an angry outburst. Or maybe if it was substances, it was I used to drink every day, and then all of a sudden it was I started working on things, working on myself, and it was 2 days that I didn't drink. And then it got I looked at it again. So if we look at it a little differently, you're like celebrating those little successes. We have to really start to peel it apart a little bit and say, what's the good in that? That's how I look at things now. And yeah, I don't know. I wanted to bring that into this space. I thought that's important because you're right that we might repeat something. I bet if we looked at it, like really studied it, be like, it's not exactly the same mistake though. I gave myself like a week or 2 weeks in between when I kind of fell off a little bit.
Mhm.
Xavier, what are you thinking? I would love to hear your
Yeah.
voice. What are you kind of sitting with the meditation?
Thank you, Jamie, for both of you for sharing such beautiful shares. This meditation for me, just it stood out great deal to me. Just from the first sentence of we're not designed to beat ourselves up when we make
Mm,
mistakes. Um, for because in my own personal journey, this has been something that I am continuously healing from. um Trying to or learning to um shift the narrative of what it means to have a human experience, and understanding that mistakes are part of that process, right? That I'm not perfect, that I'm gonna make mistakes, and ultimately as I continue to grow into my authentic self, right, that I will begin to my perspective on my mistakes will change, right? And I'm so happy, Jamie, you brought that up, that our perspectives can shift, right?
yeah.
That it doesn't have to look or be described the way that we typically you know look at things, right? That over time, that as we grow, our perspectives on things begin to shift. And I think that's just so amazing. But yeah, this I love this, and this was kind of a message, a reminder to myself just to be kind, right? And to continue to just relinquish this idea of perfection, right? I think you know
Mm,
um, we just think about, again, so many different factors that come into play in our lives, and the narratives that we're fed growing up and all throughout our lives, right, for
yeah.
various different reasons. And how when we do make mistakes, we're hard on ourselves. So or why we always strive for that perfection piece, right? Like, I have to be the best, I have to, right? So this was, for me, just a gentle reminder to take it slow. And that's something that I'm currently learning, right? To really slow down and know that it's okay, right? To slow down. It's okay if mistakes happen, because ultimately you grow from them. And um, they help you to really gain wisdom and insight into how you can just kind of maneuver different, right? If that situation comes up again, or anything like that, you're able to see like, oh, like I approached it differently, right? Compared to the last time. So I just really love that. And the last thing that really stood out to me is that mistakes are sacred. And yeah, I don't, it just really hit home for me, that mistakes are sacred. So I am appreciative of today's meditation and just being able to reflect on it and hear the perspective of both of you. And yeah.
Aw, thank you, Xavier.
Mhm.
Miigwech. Thank you for bringing that into this space. I wrote something down as you were talking. The idea of perfection, and that makes me wonder, and I'm curious. So, relatives, when we come together like this, remember we're also modeling what would it look like if we were in a support group? If we were having a private support group right now and we weren't on Facebook Live, what would that look like? And it would look like this. It would look like us being together as the facilitators, and then you all would join us on that Zoom group. And one of the things that I'm just wondering right now from our group here is perfection. Where do we think that comes from? Because we all have it. I know I've dealt with it, and I still am struggling with that. I still struggle with the idea of it's like this internal thing that comes up where you're like, I feel like I'm not being good enough right now. I'm not perfect enough, whatever that even means, you know? And so I'm curious to the group and to you, relatives. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about, had worries about like being perfect or felt like you weren't doing something the right way? Or has that interrupted your recovery? Whether it's recovery from substances or just your healing journey in general. It doesn't have to be substances. And you don't have to have a substance issue. You can be here with us walking your sacred journey and still participating in the medicine and learning and sharing with us. We are learning from one another. So I'm just really curious. Xavier, when you said that about like this idea of perfection, it instantly made me think like, yeah, and where the heck does that come from? It's like, what do you think about that?
Right.
What,
Yeah.
for your experience, what do you think that comes from?
That is a great question. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. I think I think it really is a lot of the messages that are fed to us. What it means to be for me, what it means to be a Black male. Um, Living in America, right? What it means within my own culture to be a Black male. And I think with that, as you go through your own experience, you try to live up to those expectations. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you fall short, I guess, or you don't really um, reach those things, you kind of beat yourself up like, oh, like I'm not fitting or fitting in that way. And then it becomes this whole thing of um trying to understand yourself and really what it is that you want for yourself, and unpacking that luggage and then just going from there. So I think it has to do with a lot of just the hidden subliminal messages, or the messages that are given to us directly, and then as well as uh, yeah. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. Other aspects of perfection, yeah, I'm not 100% sure though. I'd have to keep. That's a great question. That is an awesome
It
question.
is reflection
It
time.
right.
Thank you for that. Because
Yeah.
you were right. I'm feeling all that you just said. And I also was thinking about how there has to, okay, wait, let me back up. For
Mhm.
myself, for my truth right now, I feel like in my childhood, there were instances that I was made to feel embarrassed and shameful about
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what that is. And because of that, I responded in a way that said, I never want to feel that again.
Yep.
So I'm going to work really hard
Yeah.
to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's like one example, right, of how the idea of perfection, I suppose, could be manifested in some way, shape, or form through your environment. Absolutely. I'm just thinking about, like, as a woman, an Indigenous female, like, there was always comparisons to the way I looked versus what other girls my age looked. There was comparisons to my height, my size, um, the way that I acted, was because I was clumsy. I just happened to be a clumsy kid and wasn't graceful. So then there was comparisons there with other aspects. Um, yeah, there's so much. And I can even connect that to, like, thinking about how that sort of, those, like, messages translated further down the line. Like, even though I was still technically a kid, there would be older people who thought I wasn't a kid. So then I was being compared to adults versus not recognizing that I'm a child. And so then there's those messages that are being put into my head, like, well, then that means I'm supposed to act older, right? Because everybody thinks I'm older, or people are treating me like I'm older. I must not be allowed to do certain things, or I'm supposed to do certain things, which then goes even deeper into other traumas that happen: sexual abuse, physical assault, domestic violence, all sorts of things, right? And so it's interesting. It's really interesting to me. And I told you guys in the beginning, before we went live, that our ancestors were with us, and they are. They are having us kind of dig in today and
Super
say,
deep.
we are going to take you on a ride. We're going to take you right on a ride.
Absolutely.
We're going to take on a ride. Because you know why? Because that's where the healing is. The healing is in our vulnerability, our ability to sit with and think about and reflect, like, oh yeah, how is that? How is that connected? And then how much healing is in the fact that we just read an elder's meditation where the elder is reminding us, your mistakes are sacred. They are sacred. Another reminder from out there in the universe, from someone who's carrying a lot of wisdom and is here to remind us today, out of all days of the week, today, saying your mistakes are sacred. I think that's pretty doggone awesome. I'm loving it. John, what about you? How you feeling with the whole perfection?
Yeah, I just want to read a quick comment before I add my comment.
Yes, please.
From Morningstar Green Grass.
Oh,
When we were talking about mistakes, she
yeah.
said the mistakes turn into lessons, and from these lessons, growth.
Oh, I love that. Bonjour, Morningstar. Thank you for being here with us, Miigwech. Thank you for bringing your voice into this space.
And for the perfection part, she said it's meeting society's expectation and others defining who we really are, and people in our lives that made us feel like we weren't good enough.
Yeah. I feel that for sure.
100%. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
And I completely agree with what Morningstar was saying, and like what Jamie was saying. Societal, even people in our community, family members, relatives, and cousins. Because I know for me, our community is a very tight knit, small community. So it's also the pressure of representing for your community. So you have to be at a certain standard for everything. And there's that expectation. So if you don't meet those expectations, it's like people talk. So it puts yourself down because you can't meet those expectations. Or like even stereotypes for Asians. like a lot of people say that, oh, well, positive stereotypes are good. And I'm like, no, they're not, because they set you up for failure, because not everyone can meet those positive stereotypes. And when you're not able to meet those positive stereotypes, like for example, oh, Asians are smart and Asians are good at math, or
Right.
all of these other educational stuff, that sets the boundary, and that sets the bar very high. And if myself or other Asians cannot meet those bars, then you put yourself down and you're like, I'm not perfect. And you start judging yourself. Um, or even like parents expect you to get an A for everything. And then you know that you have like a A minus or a B. You start shaming yourself because you're raised that A is the only acceptable grade. So it is societal. I agree. Societal, families, friends. And then you also start to compare yourself to others.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
definitely.
I can see Xavier and I, we're like writing all kinds of notes all day. This is a session.
Is it right? I love it.
I love it because we get to be vulnerable. We're healing along this entire journey.
Absolutely.
Emotional sobriety is a way for us to heal. So that's why we encourage everyone to. We're not perfect. We're healing and talking about it.
Absolutely.
These are real situations that we're going through or how we've experienced in the past.
Yeah. Absolutely. John, thank you so much for that. Yes. And Morningstar, thank you for bringing your voice into this space. Absolutely. And some of the things that I'm thinking about, so I'm thinking of authenticity, how this idea of perfection creates a lack of authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the moment that we start to feel the shame or embarrassment or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden we're like, gotta be perfect, but we're not. We're gonna make mistakes. So we're not even allowing our true spirit to come out and say, hey, I'm not perfect though. And we're not even supposed to be perfect. So then we're like battling within ourselves. And then what happens? We start to notice these other pieces. We're like, I don't like how that feels. So let me find something to maybe make me feel better. That's some of our story, not everybody's story, but it might be like, I'm going to harm myself because I don't like how this feels. I'm tired of feeling like I have to be perfect. So maybe I self-harm. Maybe I drink. Maybe I do drugs. Maybe I use my body in a different way. Maybe it's addiction to sex or just, human connection, but it's always the wrong connection. Maybe it's unhealthy relationships. Maybe it is spending money. There's so many different things, right, that it could be connected to. Or it's how I treat other people. Or anger, it comes out in anger. Or maybe it starts to manifest in other ways like depression or anxiety. So our mental health is being activated in a certain way that's not helping us. It's actually hurting us, right? It's bringing us down a rabbit hole, which is actually now I wasn't even planning that. That just happened. That is spirit.
100%.
That is spirit coming through because I did not plan that. Relatives, this is such a good transition into our workbook. Every week we bring our workbook into this space. And earlier in our time together, I mentioned that we are going to talk about depression, and we are. Today is all about depression. And this is the book. I'm going to try to show it, Maintaining Emotional Sobriety During COVID-19. And this book is by Tion Dayton. And if we were in a private emotional sobriety support group, we would all get a copy of that workbook. And then when we met together each week, we would be going through each of the chapters. And if the chapter is large, we might use just a piece of it and talk about it and reflect. And we would journal inside of that workbook, and we would draw and color and scribble on it if we needed to. We would use it as a way to be able to connect with one another, to start jotting down our own thoughts and feelings about the topic that we're talking about. And today's topic is depression. And so look what our meditation did. Our meditation brought us completely full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. Xavier, would you please bring your voice back into this space, and would you open us up with the workbook and get us started with that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. And relative, the reason we're laughing is because this chapter is called Depression Down the Rabbit Hole. So that is
yes.
Somehow Spirit brought it full circle. So we love to hear it, love to see it. So as always, relatives, we've been going through this book the past few weeks, and really just trying to understand how we can maintain emotional sobriety during COVID-19, during this pandemic, right? So we've talked about how we can create safety. We've talked about some of the feelings that have arose with the impact of this pandemic, from being shocked and overwhelmed to how we can deal with anger. And now we're moving on to, depression and what that looks like. And, at the beginning of every chapter, there is what they call floor checks. And these floor checks are just essentially just different forms in which that said emotion shows up, right? So this depression floor check, I'll just read through, and from there we'll continue to explore and see where this journey takes us. So in exploring the depression floor check, right? So we have feeling a depressed mood most days. We have diminished pleasure most days, low energy or fatigue, sleeping issues, weight loss or weight gain, restlessness, irritability. We have anxiety, feelings of worthlessness, feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, feeling inappropriate guilt. We have difficulty thinking, concentrating, making decisions. And then there's also thoughts of death and suicide. And then whatever other feeling, right, that comes up for you, because again, these may just kind of be, just the tip of the iceberg, right? There may be some other feelings that you're like, this is more of it, right? So in exploring the floor check, right, there's also questions that the workbook has in order for us just to reflect and talk more about, right? So some of the questions, right? So out of those symptoms, right, which pops out to you the most, relative? So I'm just going to read through them and just think about, some of these questions, reflect on them. Feel free to share in the comments about either any question, right, that you feel moved to talk about, and we can talk more about it as a group. As always, we want to encourage you all to bring your voices into this space, as this is truly a space for us all to grow and heal together. So if you experience depression, how does it manifest for you? What color is it? Did you grow up with or live with anyone who is depressed? Do you think you carry someone else's depression or disappointment for them? If so, just reflect on it. And then, do you have anger that you turn inwards? Is there a part of you that you are angry with? So those are just some of the questions, right, that this book poses. And I think John will go ahead and type those in the comments for you all, so you all can just reflect further on them. And, in exploring this, I think these are such good questions, and I would love to explore them all. But I think what the one that's standing out to me the most, there's two of them, but one that's standing out to me the most is, do you think you carry someone else's depression or disappointment for them?
Mm.
um and I think that that's so important to talk about and address, right? And I would, before I kind of bring my voice into the space, right, I'd love to hear from Jamie on your thoughts about on that question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Xavier. Thanks for
Mhm.
getting us started with this. Absolutely, yes. I was when you were talking about when you were going through the floor check,
Mhm.
I could connect to difficulty thinking, concentrating, making decisions. I can connect with weight issues. I can connect with inappropriate guilt, um, low energy, fatigue, and my other I think would be a feeling of like really heaviness. Like I for many years didn't know that I struggled with depression. So this is prior to me really recognizing, Jamie, you have a problem with alcohol. You are not the type of person that should be drinking alcohol. So years before that, I had been struggling with depression. Didn't know it, never acknowledged it. I had a really close friend, a best friend who is she passed away a few years back, but my best friend at the time, we had been friends since like grade school, and she actually called me one day and said, "I think you are depressed, Jamie." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" "No, I'm not." And I'd be like, "Okay, I'm just having a bad day, whatever." And then it would be like, "Okay, so when are we going to go do this or that?" And then there'd be alcohol involved, right? Like, "Okay, let's go and forget about our troubles. Let's forget that I'm tired all the time and I'd prefer to sleep like 14 hours a day." Or, you know, uh, so, and in that, so there's that piece that I was thinking about. And then that question I love, are you carrying someone else's depression? Because I can relate on multiple levels. I can relate at my own carrying my own depression, but then being in abusive relationships and walking with their own struggles too. So someone who I've come to learn that people who are doing the abusing, there is a whole lot going on there. There is a whole lot of pain and trauma that is deep within that individual, to for us to even be that kind of person, right? To like want to hurt people over and over and over again. And I recognize that there can be other instances and situations that are connected to that. But I can definitely connect with like walking with someone else's pain and thinking it's your own. Like, oh, that must be me, that must be my fault, when it really wasn't. Or even other situations with like family members. When you have a family member who's struggling, I've had multiple different family members who've struggled with their mental health, and it all of a sudden becomes like it's now mine because I'm hurting so badly for them. I feel like I want to make it better. I want to make it stop hurting. And when I wasn't, what's the words I'm looking for? When I didn't know necessarily how to have healthy boundaries and how to be able to still protect my own mental health, it did sometimes feel like, and I was carrying somebody else's depression. It was like I was dragging it along. Like, that person feels so bad, and so now I feel bad, and I'm like, look at everything's terrible and hopeless, and oh my God, and I hate that they're feeling so bad, and I hate that I feel so bad, but I don't know what to do. I wish I could make it better, but nobody's listening to me, and I don't know what I'm talking about, and oh my God, I just want to sleep, and this is exhausting, and it's not even like I think I actually kind of have a good life. I don't know, but like I'm always with this person and they're just like really sad all the time and I don't like it, but I don't want to say anything, or I just want to make them laugh or feel better and love them, and it's not working. And so what happens is that I can only speak for myself. I had to come to terms with knowing that that's not actually my sadness. That absolutely I can love them and I can support where I can, but that their happiness comes from within them. And so if I keep on dragging around someone else's depression, really what all it was doing was harming me. It was bringing me further down and further down, and it was heavier and heavier and heavier. And so, I mean, I feel very blessed because outside of the very unhealthy, abusive relationships from my past prior to finding my healing journey and really working on myself, I feel blessed now that I have these healthy boundaries, that I'm able to recognize that I can support to some extent, and I can be here to love. And if somebody asks me for my help, I can absolutely give it. I can't force anybody to do anything they don't want to. I can't make things get better for someone else. I don't have a magic wand, and I certainly can't carry everyone's stuff, right? No one can do that. None of us can carry everyone's. And so for me, I think it really, it's like, for me, it's what's coming up is a lot of boundaries, healthy boundaries, and understanding that if I know that I have a tendency that I can fall into a space where I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling down and sadness, if I'm not taking care of myself, or if I'm maybe not being aware of my boundaries and I'm not respecting them, that absolutely can happen. Yes, 100%. And so I hope that was helpful in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing and bringing your voice here, um, your experience into this space, right? I think that highlighting the importance of boundaries, right, and how that can impact the, the feelings that we are experiencing, right? Oftentimes we do feel that, or oftentimes we can pick up, right? If we want to talk for our metaphysical, spiritual, aspect, that aspect of energy, right? And that
Yeah.
we can pick up on other people's energy and feelings, even without our awareness, right? So being very intentional, right, about the boundary piece, and finding ways that we can allow ourselves to take care of our spirits, and um, tune into our feelings, right? And what are those ways that we need to do that, right? I know for um, at least for me, right, and I know for many of our relatives, that may be through smudging, right, using some cultural pieces to help kind of cleanse your spirit in that way, right? So yeah, definitely. So thank you for sharing that, Jamie,
Yeah,
again, and bringing that into the space.
absolutely.
John, any comments? And then as well, would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So we do have a comment a little bit earlier from, I believe her name is pronounced Carmelita. She said,
Yeah.
"Hi everyone.
Hi,
What
Carmelita.
Xavier?" She said, "What Xavier said earlier about the perfection." She said, "Yes, I think social implicit bias has played a part. A lot of the attitudes and stereotypes of my social surroundings." And then she also said, "Yes, Jamie. On my healing journey, understanding how much my intergenerational stuff influenced me, needing to be different." And then she also said, "Yes, John," for what? So
Oh,
just yes to everything.
yes,
Yes,
yes, and
love it,
yes.
love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Meet Wetch Carmelita. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And then also Marissa just commented a few minutes ago saying we can't fix. She said yes to Jamie. That makes so much sense. We think we deserve it and carry it with us for years.
Mm, yeah.
And then she also said we can't fix other people's pain. Only heal ourselves and be able to show them to heal. It is possible.
I love that. Oh, Marissa, thank you, Miigwech. That made me that made me think about how oh, there's like a whole nother conversation there, because that's connected to like purposefully harming ourselves because we think we deserve it. Like we need to
Mm.
write that down for next week. That is a whole conversation.
It is. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
What about
Yeah.
you, Xavier?
Yeah. So my mind goes to the community healer in me, right? And just the overall um mission statement right here at HIR Wellness, and we strive to really understand the impact of historical and intergenerational trauma, and how we can heal from those aspects, right? So when I think about carrying someone else's depression or disappointment, my mind goes to those ancestors, those family members, right, that came before us,
Mm-hmm.
and how often times we are carrying their pain, we're carrying their worry, we're carrying their hurt, but we're also carrying their resiliency. So
Yes.
while we are carrying that, we are carrying their resiliency. We are strong. We are tough, right? We can listen. We are out here.
Yep.
We made it. They made it
We are
that
here.
far, right? Yes, absolutely. But my mind went there, right? In terms of, we oftentimes can be carrying these strong feelings that we have no idea where they are stemming from, and we're just like, I don't know what this is, why I'm feeling this.
Mm-hmm.
Because for my personal experience, right, I often feel that for myself that there is deep sadness that I often carry, and oftentimes I'm like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Like, where's this coming from? Like, what is this, right? um but being able to sit back and have moments to reflect, and whenever that opportunity presents itself, right? And through my own healing journey, I've learned to find ways to connect with my ancestors, right? Coming back into my own culture and spirituality, and what that needs to look like for me, right? And how that healing, um, answering that call to come back, right, to those practices and things, how that is bringing the healing that is necessary for uh, the generation that came before me and the ones that are coming after, right? So there's definitely this idea that we do carry the pain and sometimes the sadness that many of our ancestors have dealt with and didn't get the opportunity to heal from, right? So when it surfaces, that it gives us that opportunity um, to explore it and to friend it, to see where it takes us, and to heal from it in a way that needs to um, that works for our spirit. So that's where my mind went. And then just in terms of healing, right? I wrote something earlier when we were talking about imperfection and or perfection and all these different ideas, that healing is about basically kind of finding our true selves, right? So like Jamie said, that authentic being. So when we agree to enter or begin this healing journey that again is lifelong,
Yeah.
that we are essentially deconstructing so many narratives, and just we're deconstructing our false sense of self in order to find our true self, right? So with that, it helps us to understand that that we are truly imperfect, right? So as we continue our healing journey, we begin to see like, oh, I'm imperfect, and it is okay, like.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so beautiful in the way that it's so wild just to think about, right? That we're fed all these narratives and different things and aspects to again, give off this sense of perfection, and then we have to go through this healing process, which deconstructs everything and just ultimately shows us, hey, you're not perfect at all, and it's okay.
Right.
And it's so beautiful. It can be scary, absolutely scary, and yeah, it's truly scary. But again, that resiliency piece, I just want to highlight that is something that we also carry within us, and oftentimes in my opinion, right, there's so much talk about the pain and the hurt that we carry through historical and intergenerational trauma and things like that, but there's not often enough talk about the resiliency piece. So I just want to highlight that and say, relatives, just spend some time sitting with that, thinking about that, and what that looks like, right, for yourself, your generation, and sit with that. But yeah, that my thoughts again just kind of went to the broad, the big, like
Yeah.
we are carrying it from those that came way before us. And again, there are days and moments where you may feel a sudden onset of sadness or a sudden onset of frustration, irritability about certain things, right? And you may have never had an experience a day in your life. You're like, I've never experienced like this situation, so I don't understand why I'm feeling this way, right? And it really could be something that is connected to an ancestor or someone within family history that didn't get a chance to heal. So it's allowing and coming to the surface for you to dive into it, explore it, and heal that aspect if you're open and willing and ready to take that leap. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Xavier. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. We all needed to hear that today because we're walking with both of those aspects. There's the balance, the intergenerational pain, and there's the intergenerational resiliency as well. That was amazing. So thank you. Oh my goodness. There's so much more to talk about. There really is. Like, this has to be a part one again. Depression part one.
Absolutely.
So much to talk about, and we got such good comments. Relatives, thank you so much for being here with us and for showing up. The fact that you're here, that is to be celebrated. And when I say here, I mean that in multiple ways. Here physically because you were born, you are the answer to your ancestors' prayers, and you are here. Regardless of how you look, sound, feel, what you're going through, it doesn't matter. You are here. And that is beautiful. And you came and showed up for an emotional sobriety session today. And we had a chance to come together in community and talk a little bit and share and be vulnerable a little bit, lean into a little bit of some memories, maybe sometimes some uncomfortableness. That's to be celebrated. That's amazing. So my final message to this evening to you, relatives, is that you are beautiful. You are resilient. You are worthy. You are sacred. You are enough. And I just send you many thanks for being here. We will be back again next week, Friday. And before we really wrap it up, John, what are your final words for us today?
I just love how, we have all these questions that just came out of nowhere and we're just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah.
And I love that we do that every single week. We barely plan for this, relative, and we just kind of allow ourselves to just be ourselves and be vulnerable. And that's what's so great about, coming here every single Friday and also just sharing how we're feeling, how we truly do feel. And I just love that, you guys share your insight and also your knowledge and also communicate with us. That's how we heal, and that's how we learn different coping skills. So sharing your knowledge and your insights with us, and also being vulnerable when you want to. It's so healing to hear everyone's journey, because we're all so different, but we're all on the same journey of healing, which I love to see that. And I'm super excited that your willingness to share in the comment section every single week. So I just love that. I love being here every weekend, every Friday, and just with Xavier and Jamie. And I do want to say that, we're imperfectly perfect in our own ways. So we may not be perfect for everyone, but we're perfect for ourselves, because no one can be like us but ourselves. So embrace that. Um, and it's okay to not be perfect, because no one is. So that's so important to understand.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
Mm.
Xavier, I would love it if you would bring us home and you would end our session today. So, what are your final words for us?
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you both for such beautiful words. Yes, I enjoy this time together every Friday, just to be able to come together as always, to hold this space, to hold this community that we're building and continuing to build as we heal together. Um, I think my final words would just be to remember, relatives, that you are truly resilient, and that you have your ancestors' resiliency running through your veins. And, again, to remember, just to be kind to yourselves, right? That, life has its ups and downs, and um, it can definitely take a toll on us, but to be kind, to be gentle, and to know that you are supported by both people in your lives that you can physically see, and those that um, who have passed on and that are in the unseen world. So that's my final thoughts, my final reflections. As always, so happy to be able to bring this to our relatives and really share this space and come into community and provide just this example, or this, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is, but to be able to just show you all what a private Zoom group would look like. But really to just really be in relationship with you all. We understand that the past year has been insane with COVID and the pandemic. I think it's the 1 year anniversary today or tomorrow of stay at home order, right? So we definitely want to just say you all have pulled through, right? That you made it this far, and that continue to just lean on those things that bring comfort, that bring joy, and know that we at HIR Wellness are here to support in any way that we can. And I know John will put down the CARES warm line number in there for you all. And again, relatives, this is just for social emotional support, right? Just wanting someone to talk to, having a rough day, need someone to guide you through some breathing techniques or something like that. You can give us a call. It's not a crisis line, so if are in an emergency, or feeling like I am um, just I'm on the edge of suicide or anything like that, we encourage your relatives to please just reach out to 988, the suicide hotline. Reach out to your closest emergency facility, right, and get that support. But as always, relatives, we just thank you all so much for being with us today, and um, just joining us on this journey as we again bring healing to our community, as we heal together and journey through life together. So thank you.
Mm. Gigawatt men relatives.